Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating biological quirk that is honestly going to change how we all approach learning. We're going to unpack some really incredible recent insights from cognitive psychology to figure out exactly why studying often feels so impossibly difficult and, more importantly, how we can actually flip the script and make it a whole lot easier.
So, picture this highly relatable scenario. You're sitting at your desk. The book is open, you've completely silenced your phone. You promise yourself, okay, today I am finally going to study. But then, 10 minutes later, you're somehow scrolling a random website. 20 minutes later, you realize you're staring at the exact same paragraph you started on. An hour passes, and you've learned absolutely nothing. Why in the world does this happen? Why does just hitting the books feel like you're trying to push a massive boulder up a steep hill?
Well, go ahead and take a huge sigh of relief right now, because here is the most surprising takeaway from the cognitive science. The problem probably isn't your intelligence, and it certainly isn't laziness either. The reality is that your brain was simply never designed to learn the way most traditional schools teach us to learn. You're literally experiencing a biological mismatch. And to fix that mismatch, we first need to figure out where all this mental friction is coming from.
All right, let's get right into section 1, why studying feels hard.
Think of your brain as the ultimate survival machine. Its absolute #1 priority is energy conservation. So when you try to tackle a really complex subject, your cognitive load naturally skyrockets. The brain immediately registers this massive energy demand and throws up a shield. It actually creates active mental resistance just to save battery power. It wants to avoid difficult tasks at all costs. Combine that natural resistance with the everyday decision fatigue we all experience, and it is no wonder your motivation just evaporates so quickly. So how do we normally react to this?
Which brings us to section 2, the illusion of mastery. Usually we just try to brute force our way through that friction, right? But that just traps us on this endless mental hamster wheel. We grab a fluorescent yellow marker and highlight entire pages, we reread the same chapters over and over, and we cram like crazy the night before the exam. Basically, we equate the feeling of being busy with actually learning something. But the science shows these methods absolutely do not build deep memory. They just create a really dangerous illusion of progress. You feel like you're learning, but honestly, you're just spinning your wheels. And the reason those methods fail is because there's a massive, crucial difference between familiarity and mastery. Rereading simply builds familiarity. You recognize the text, sure, but only because the book is literally open right in front of you. Mastery, on the other hand, is that light bulb moment where you can retrieve the information from a blank slate completely from scratch without any help at all. Familiarity might feel good in the moment, but mastery is what actually passes exams and builds real-world skills. So to bridge that gap, we've got to look under the hood at the machinery in our heads. Let's move on to section 3, the memory superpowers. If we really want to hack this system, we need to know exactly how it operates. There are 3 very specific steps to how our memory actually works: encoding, storage, and retrieval. It's actually a lot like a computer. Encoding is typing the information on your keyboard, taking it into your short-term working memory. Storage is clicking save, so it moves to your hard drive, which is your long-term memory. And retrieval? That's being able to search for that specific file and open it up when you actually need it. The crazy thing is, most students spend all of their time and energy on step 1, encoding, and completely ignore step 3.
And ignoring that retrieval step leads to a pretty terrifying reality known as the forgetting curve. It's honestly wild how quickly information just decays over time if you do nothing with it. By day 3, a huge chunk of what you learned is just gone. Poof! But here is the secret to the whole thing. You can intercept this curve right before you forget the information. This is a technique called spaced repetition. By reviewing the material at strategic intervals, say on day 1, day 3, day 7, and day 30, you completely flatten that forgetting curve. Every single time you intercept the forgetting process, you're sending a loud signal to your brain saying, hey, I keep needing this information, make it permanent. You're literally forcing it into long-term storage.
Okay, so how exactly should you review that information? With the ultimate, scientifically backed superpower, active recall. Active recall just means closing the book and actively testing yourself. It's using flashcards, self-quizzing, and forcing your brain to retrieve the facts. The scientific evidence is incredibly clear here. The very act of pulling information out of your brain strengthens the memory pathway far better than passively pushing it in through reading. It definitely feels a lot harder to do, but that's precisely because it's actually working. Now, having said all that, even these amazing memory techniques have a hard limit if we ignore our basic biology.
That takes us to section 4,
focus, and lifestyle.
The hard truth is you simply cannot achieve deep learning in a distracted environment. It's like our brains are physically tethered to our screens these days. Every single time you check a notification, you get a little dopamine spike and your focus completely shifts. Then, when you look back at your work, a portion of your attention is actually still stuck on that text message or that social media post. It's a biological glitch called attention residue. Guys, multitasking is a total myth. Constant interruptions absolutely destroy your flow state and drastically reduce the quality of whatever it is you're trying to learn.
And beyond just managing those distractions, your biological foundation is completely non-negotiable. You cannot outstudy a poorly maintained brain. Sleep is when actual memory consolidation happens. It is literally the save button for your day. Meanwhile, getting regular cardiovascular exercise pushes crucial oxygen to the brain, and proper nutrition stabilizes your focus so you don't experience those awful afternoon crashes. Managing your stress and actually taking structured breaks will profoundly impact your overall concentration. Taking care of your body is, quite literally, taking care of your hardware. So let's finally tie all of these elements together into something practical.
Section 5. Building your study system.
Let's create a direct, actionable roadmap to upgrade your old habits into the scientific methods used by the top 1% of highly effective learners. Instead of that stressful last-minute cramming, we are going to swap in spaced repetition to completely master the forgetting curve. Instead of mindless highlighting, we upgrade to active recall. And instead of passive reading, we're going to adopt the Feynman technique. That simply means trying to teach the concept you're learning to someone else in plain, everyday terms. Because the rule of thumb is, if you can't explain it simply, you haven't mastered it yet.
Ultimately, our goal is to build an effortless routine that relies on a solid system, not on fleeting motivation. Remember that intense mental resistance from the brain we talked about earlier? Well, the hardest part is almost always just getting started. So trick your brain. Break the tasks down into tiny, ridiculously manageable steps. Use the 5-minute rule. Just commit to studying for 5 minutes. That's it. You'll find that once you start, that initial friction almost always vanishes. You can combine this with habit stacking by linking your study time to something you already do every single day. Oh, and put your phone in a totally different room to guarantee your focus. Design your environment to reduce the friction to start, and then just let the science do the heavy lifting.
Let's wrap things up with a really powerful thought. When you stop fighting your brain and start working with it, studying no longer feels like a battle. It becomes a skill. Most people think successful learners just have more discipline than the rest of us. But the truth? They just understand how the brain actually works. They use active recall, spaced repetition, and smart environment design to make it easy. And just like any other skill, it gets easier every single day you practice it. So I want to leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know exactly how your brain actually wants to learn, what outdated study habit are you going to drop today to unlock your true potential? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy learning!